So the first episode is dedicated to colorism. Colorism. Earlier on in the year, I did a little survey and asked people what kind of topics they would like to hear from me, like for me to discuss and like for me to do YouTube videos on. And I did topics against each other, and one of the topics that won against the other was colorism. People wanted me to discuss my dissertation on colorism. In my last year of uni, I chose to do my dissertation on colorism. So I conducted a study on Afro-Caribbean women within the UK and how colorism affects their psychological well-being. So that was my disso. So I was really proud that my dissertation initially was about something that I cared about, something that impacted me growing up, something that is going to impact my daughter, it impacts my cousins and just the women around me, and it was just something informative to add light on how we're affected by this phenomenon, colorism, because I think a lot of people in our community that aren't affected by colorism don't like for dark-skinned women to keep going on about it, don't like for dark-skinned women to talk about their issues with it, and the trauma that they faced at the hands of colorism. And I think we kind of have to brush it under the carpet all the time and hush hush, you're whining, you're bitter, you're this, you're that. But there's a reason we're whining and there's a reason we're bitter. It's because colorism literally affects all aspects of your life. It affects your life chances, it affects sometimes the longevity of your life, your health chances, your interpersonal relationships and the quality of these relationships. So I think colorism is very important because essentially we say racism affects people's life chances, and we take that so seriously, and we need to also take colorism as serious as well, because it's affecting people's well-being, it is affecting people's quality of life, and it's an equality that needs to be rectified, it's an equality that doesn't need to exist, and we don't need to keep perpetrating it. So I think a part of not perpetrating it, or a part of stopping it being a continuous cycle, is learning the root of it. What is the cause of it and how it's perpetrated? What is perpetrated it? I mean, who is responsible for the continuation of colorism? Who is responsible for the commencement of colorism? So yeah, these are all things that I want to discuss in this series of episodes. Yeah, it's gonna be long. It's gonna be long. It's gonna be long. Yeah, this hat's on my head, just to prove that I'm a graduate. I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. Just so you know. Baby girl know a little bit about what she's talking about. Like, man's just not falling out the sky and started waffling, do you know what I mean? Maybe when I get my doctorate, you lot will take me a bit serious, like, hey, Dr. Semilu, yes, that's me, baby. Semilu? What? Sema? Alright, cool. Let's get into it. Skin colour stratification, also termed colorism, is the practice that privileges ethnic people of lighter skin hues over darker skin people. According to Hunter 2007, colorism affects one's interpersonal relationships, such as marriage, education and housing quality. Even though my study concentrates within the black community, previous research has shown that colorism is an issue within the Latino and Asian community. Colorism is a product of racism birthed from post-slavery ideals, which have manifested into a form of intraracial discrimination supported and sustained by white dominant ideals of beauty. By the 1930s, it was estimated that 70% of black Americans had either white or Native American ancestry due to the pervasiveness of different races mixing. Black people with lighter skin tones and Caucasian features were accorded privileges that weren't available to darker skinned people. White people saw these observable characteristics as evidence of white ancestry, and so treated such individuals as genetically superior to the darker skinned black people with African features. Now, earlier on I said that colorism is intraracial discrimination. Intraracial meaning that it's perpetrated by the people within the community. So upon reading that, it seems that white people were the originators of colorism. I mean, they were the originators of racism, but they founded this concept of colorism. They founded this concept of superiority within the black people. But how did this then become something that black people perpetrated against each other as opposed to something white people do? Because now in today's society, when you speak to white people, they have no idea what colorism is. They see lighter skinned black people and then they see darker skinned black people and they just think you're black. So the question that arises from this is, how did this shift from being something that is perpetrated by white people to being a concept perpetrated within the black community? According to Neal and Wilson 1989, blacks began to divide themselves into two categories, good and bad. Now, the good categories were interchangeable with white features: thin nose, long/straight hair, light eyes, multicolored eyes, whilst bad features were synonymous with African features: broad nose, big lips, coarse, kinky, nappy hair, and of course, dark skin. So we can see here, featureism and colorism are an interchangeable concept. A great example of this general attitude and hierarchy of skin color is illustrated in this post-slavery famous rhyme. Yeah. If you're white, you're alright. If you're yellow, you're mellow. If you're brown, stick around. If you're black, get back. Now, from the information I've just presented, it is clear to see that colorism is anti-black and deep-rooted in Eurocentrism. In COARD, BRELAND and RASKIN's 2001 study, they stated that the survival of colorism is dependent on black people relying on white society for definition and approval. Colorism, initially being a product of racism and a tactic for whites to divide blacks, no longer needed the active input of white discrimination. As the black community began to police itself, it carried through a self-fulfilling prophecy. The self-fulfilling prophecy commences with a false definition of the situation, which evokes a new behaviour that makes the original definition true. Black people believed that the closer they looked to Western standards of beauty, the more superior they were to other blacks. And that, my friend, is the definition of colorism and a little historical background as to how it came about. The next episode on colorism, I will be discussing a little history on some of the practices that arose from the post-slavery era and how darker skin was discriminated against, and some things that we have carried through and we have regurgitated throughout the generation. So I hope you liked this, I hope you enjoyed this. Please leave a thumbs up, a like, share it, send it to a dark skinned female, send it to a light skinned female, send it to your brothers, send it to your sisters, your little cousins, especially the younger generations. We're trying to break the cycle, and I hope this has helped. Love you lots. Wait. Love you lots. Ooh. Okay, bye.